I am finally getting back to this 286 PC that literally tried to explode in my face. This is part 2, so if you haven't seen part 1, I highly recommend going back and watching that. That's where I actually take this thing apart and look at a bunch of the individual components, and you get to see the fireworks. This video has been delayed beyond all possible imagination. I went to a punk rock concert, and now that I'm in my 50s, I do not recover from that kind of nonsense quite at the same rate that I used to. And then after that, I got sick, and it's just been one thing after another. And that's on top of the trials and tribulations that I had just dealing with this fine piece of machinery. So I'm not going to make you wait any longer. Let's just get right into this horrible, horrible machine.
I'm a firm believer that people should not be cowards. You should fully intend all of your puns. I'm going to start with a brief recap. I replaced the Cacodemons Fireball back here with a brand new tantalum capacitor. Aside from that, I have not done anything to this board since the last time it was on the channel. I did look it up on the retro web and try to get as much information about it, and I've gathered new ROM images. I haven't swapped these ones out, but I did notice a couple mistakes in some of the documentation that is available about this board on the retro web, and I'm going to try to get that corrected. And I'll talk about that more later on in the video when I get to that part. To begin with, I'm going to try to restore this basically back to as much the original condition as possible. For this initial testing, with one exception, I am not going to put the original video card back in. I don't remember which one of these was the original card from the system. I think it was this one that had the snapped off screw in. Both of these cards are EGA cards, and EGA is kind of a hassle to deal with. I would have to actually dig out a proper CRT monitor. I have a couple monitors that I think would work with EGA. Someone in the previous video had suggested that I put the VGA card in my Tandy 1000 since it's 8-bit, but these are both EGA, and I guess the Tandy 1000 monitor should work with an EGA card, I would think, but I don't know how much of an upgrade EGA is over Tandy graphics, and there are at least a handful of games that if they don't detect legit Tandy graphics, they won't use Tandy sound either, and that's kind of the point of that whole thing. If someone has a different opinion, if someone thinks that upgrading that to EGA would be an upgrade, let me know about it in the comments. You know, let me know what your experiences are. I'm always curious about other people's opinions. It's one of the things I like about doing YouTube videos is when people share their thoughts with me. What I am going to do is, this was the original hard drive and hard drive controller from this system. I never got the hard drive from the other system working. I suspect it may have stiction, so I've got a couple more things I'm going to try. I don't know if that will end up in a video. I'm going to go ahead and test this one out and see if it works. It also is MFM. We'll see. We'll see if there's anything interesting on that. Instead of the EGA cards, I'm going to use this Cirrus Logic VGA. This is the card that's probably going to end up living in this machine, because I am intending to keep this. I'm ultimately going to put some kind of, it may not end up being this network card as the final card, but some kind of a network card in it, because being able to FTP software onto a system is pretty convenient. And also I need something with a boot ROM so that I can make use of a proper IDE controller and some sort of not spinning rust. I dug through my sound card collection, and I think I have a bunch of these cards with these Yamaha YMF 719E chips in it, and I've never used one. It is my understanding that they are very good cards, so I'm going to give this a try. What else am I going to put in? Oh yes, for sure, my postcard will be in here for all of the testing. And at least for the initial stuff, there may be some other surprise upgrades. Assuming I can get this properly working, I'm going to also do the very tedious task. I dug through my collection and found the larger RAM chip, so I'm going to do the very tedious task of pulling out all all of these 256K RAM chips and replace them with 1 megabit RAM chips so that this has a full 4 megabytes on the motherboard. I may be able to perform some other kinds of memory upgrades on it. We'll see. And there may be some other little things along the way, but that is the sort of the general direction that I am hoping that this video will head, assuming that there are no additional fireballs. I have a slightly sketchy setup here. I dug through some of my boxes and I found an ISA L bracket adapter. So I have the video card and the post card on the L adapter so that the display on the post card is actually visible. And that left, because they are short cards, that left just barely enough space to get the disk controller, the original disk controller, in the last 16-bit ISA slot. This seems... I don't know how I feel about this. Hard drive spins up and makes sounds. Okay, we get BIOS. Okay, all right. This is progress. Run setup utility. Oh. Yes, I asked specifically for... Oh, this is... Okay. Entering the wrong drive type. Oh, I wonder what... For disk type details, press escape. This is... I have never seen a BIOS like this. All right, I may have to look up what this drive is to try to figure out what the matching drive type is. Okay, so it's a Toshiba MK-134 FA. So I need to look for something that has 733 cylinders, 7 heads. And this doesn't say sectors per track is a thing. All right, let's just look. Well, there's 21 is 733 and 7, and that says 43 megabytes. This documentation says 42 megabytes formatted, 53 megabytes unformatted. I'm going to guess that it is drive type 21. And there is no D type. Stand by while system is rebooting. It worked! All right. Hey. Well, that's something. It booted to D? Okay, that's... I assume there is a... Okay, so there is a C. Okay, all right. Anything interesting happen on here? Nothing. Just puts WordPerfect directory in the. Is there anything else on here interesting? What's GPU? What's... So I'm gonna guess Indy and Ferrari are probably games. Maybe GPU is also. Indianapolis 500, the simulation. All right. Oh, code books. Oh, code books. No idea. Go away. All right, that's some glorious EGA graphics there. All right, so this game you can actually do something with, although it really wants a mouse, and I don't have a mouse connected. How can I know how I can exit the game. Oh no, they captured Control Alt Delete. Let's see what GPU is. Accolade and Road and Track present Grand Prix Unlimited. Wow, this is a 1992 game that someone was playing, or trying to play, on a 286. Oh yes. Even worse than the manual-based copy protection is the code wheels. All right, well, I will just reset out of this. JP7 way back here is reset. That does not seem like a very convenient location for something that's going to be connected to the front of the case. I don't know what the logic was of that. So the hard drive works. It didn't look like there was anything terribly interesting on it. Actually, I didn't look at the C drive very much. So it looks like there's WordPerfect, a paint program, and a couple driving games on here that are probably not that interesting. So I'm just going to move this hard drive off to the side, although it seems to be working, which is kind of cool. I may play around with it a little bit more at some point later, although it's working, which is neat. It's 42 megabytes, which is 42 megabytes. Before I even want to bother booting this the first time with the new hardware installed, I want to update these ROMs because that BIOS was no. It was just no. A thing I noticed, though, is part of the documentation that is on the RetroWeb says that this is even, and this is odd, and this is bank 1 of RAM, and this is bank 0 of RAM. But you can see pretty clearly from the system as it works, this is odd, this is even, this is bank 0, and this is bank 1. So I'm going to try to get some kind of an addendum or update the image that's on there, the documentation image, or something, because what's currently up there is wrong. If you download the ROM images that are on there and burn them and put them in the ROM, it won't work. I just wanted to make that comment, and then I'm gonna swap these ROM images. I already burnt ROMs. I'm gonna put them in the correct order, in the correct arrangement, and move on from there. Quite some time has passed. much more than just a simple wardrobe change might indicate. In that intervening time, I went ahead and put everything in the case. I installed, you can kind of see the new ROMs installed. I hooked everything back up. I have also, with some help from my friends in the local area, completely populated this out with 1 megabit by 1 memory chips, so it has the full 4 megs installed on the board. I'm very excited about this. Perhaps unreasonably excited. I have diddled around with this a little bit more, and hopefully I haven't jumped the gun by putting this in the case already. Let's fire it up and see what it does. It does count up the memory. The memory count is really slow, and if I hit the turbo button, oh, it's even slower. So I have confidence that I have turbo correctly configured. One thing that's neat about this BIOS is it automatically detected what kind of floppy drives are installed. I've never noticed that before, and I certainly would not have expected that from a September 15th, 1989 BIOS.
Need to reconfigure how I have my XT IDE firmware because it spends a really long time looking for the secondary IDE controller that is not there. So one thing that I have done is, because it has 4 megs of memory in here, some of the things that I want to run using that memory, they need EMS. There's kind of 2 different ways of accessing memory beyond 1 megabyte in DOS. There's extended memory, which on a 386 or a 486 is what you want. Because on a 386, 46, and anything after that, those processors have protected mode, where you can just use 32-bit addressing, access all that memory just as memory, like the way that you would think of, I have a number that is an address, that's the location I want. On an 8088, there is no such thing as extended memory. The only thing that you have is expanded memory, or EMS. And that requires something that looks a bit like bank switching. You've heard of bank switching on Nintendo games and with some RAM expansions on the Commodore 64 and the Apple II. It's basically a bank switching scheme where some 4K blocks, I believe it's 4K blocks, in the range between 640K and 1 megabyte end up being a window into this other memory. And so you have usually some extra kind of hardware, like on previous videos I used Intel above boards, where you have this extra memory that is available in this small window, and using that hardware, the application can change and say, okay, now I want this chunk of memory to be available at this 4K. So you can kind of bank switch. On a 286, you're in sort of a weird no man's land. On a 286, you can still use EMS. But the 286 also it has a protected mode, but it is for sure not the droids you are looking for. It operates very differently, and so almost no applications or operating systems properly make use of it. But by default, if a 286 chipset can access beyond 1 megabyte, that's how it shows up, and you need some kind of a driver. And a lot of 286 chipsets have built-in EMS support so that they can give you the thing that you would actually want. And there is a driver for this chipset. I got it off the RetroWeb. It is not happy. Like, it did not load. Shadow RAM jumper may be incorrect. So it has a couple of ways that it can operate. One way, you tell it, and I have told it a variety of different windows, you tell it, make that window into the memory beyond 1 megabyte at this specific location. And that is how you want it to be, because the alternative is not on. Let's see if this works. No. Okay, so the alternative, and the alternative that does not work with a lot of applications, let's see what this does, is you kind of fake it and you carve out a chunk of regular DOS memory and you say, this is my window into the memory beyond 1 megabyte, but it's okay. So that worked, but then I'll explain this new error momentarily. But what it does, and this is the way that some fake EMS drivers, I think there's an EMM-286 is a driver that exists. They say, we've got this memory out there past 1 megabyte. I have no way to map it. On a 386, you could just map it using protected mode or using virtual 8088 or 8086 mode. We're basically use the hardware memory management unit to make memory appear to be in different locations. 286 doesn't, the way its protected mode works, does not afford you that luxury. So what this mode that I have configured does is it says, all right, so what we'll do, when the application says, I want this 4K region available, we'll copy it. We'll copy it into DOS memory and say, ta-da! And then when they request a different one, we'll copy the results back and copy the new one in. It's terrible. It is terrible. But it seems to be the only thing I can get to work on this. And so when that happens, now all of the memory is used for EMS, and so the XMS driver won't load. I guess that's not surprising. And so now if I say mem, it says I have 3.5 megabytes ish of DOS memory. And so I wonder now, can I run Wolf3D? Or is it going to complain? No, it complains because there's not enough DOS memory. This is frustrating. The whole reason I wanted this motherboard is because it could have more RAM. And I have some other things that I want to do with that. I disabled the EMS driver that's not really working correctly. Back to having extended memory. I can load DOS high now, and so now I should be able to run Wolf3D, and it should be fine. Yeah, so it runs, it sees the XMS, but Wolf3D, as far as I'm aware, it just runs in real mode. So yay, there's XMS, but it can't do anything with it because of how it's very sensibly implemented. One thing that I find interesting about this EMS driver is it comes with its source code. That is a new one on me. And their documentation specifically says this copy stuff around mode Windows does not support, which is not terribly surprising and is not the thing that you want anyway. The documentation specifically mentions this shadow RAM issue, and it says that shadow RAM must be enabled. And the segment selected for the physical window must be available. Now I know the window is available because the only things that I have mapped in that space are VGA memory, the VGA BIOS, and the BIOS on the XT IDE BIOS. And I know where those are, and they don't conflict with any of those. I believe that I put the XT IDE BIOS at C800. So if I pick either D000 or E000, I should be fine. But the rest of those will conflict with various things. Went out and found a piece of software that's recommended a lot for dealing with this kind of stuff called the Last Byte. The Last Byte memory manager. And its documentation seems to indicate that the VLSI 82C100, which is what's in this, basically sucks. It can't do the thing. So I don't understand why the EMS driver for that chipset even has options to do this thing that apparently it cannot do. That does not make a lot of sense to me. And that maybe the README could say, oh hey, the driver is going to complain that you haven't configured a thing right, but that thing is impossible to configure right on these chipsets. Like, that seems pretty obvious of a thing to do. So if I want proper EMS memory on this, I have some expansion boards. All is not completely lost yet. But I fear that it's not going to get much better. EMS add-in boards are for sure not what I want for this project, but it's where I am with this with this motherboard. I have two choices available to me. I have either these Intel above boards. I have attempted to use these in the past, and I have found the software to be wanting. The installation software that I tried to use before, just when I run it on DOS 6.2.2 or 5.0, it says, your DOS version is too old. I have since found documentation, so I think I can basically force these to work by just installing the software by hand and setting up the drivers. If the installer doesn't work on newer versions of DOS, I don't have a lot of faith that the actual driver will work either. I also have this, who makes this? BOCA? This BOCA RAM, I believe, yeah, BOCA Research. I believe this is a BOCA RAM AT Plus. There is not a lot of information about these on the internet. Now, I've already kind of set this one up. When I got it, it had these two memory modules installed. Looking at the documentation that I could find, memory must be installed bank 1, 2, 3, 4. The problem is, and the reason for the rubber bands is half of the plastic clip on the first SIM socket is busted. Both sides are completely busted on the second slot. I think the third one is okay, and the fourth one, like part of the clip that should be right here, is broken. So in order to hold this memory module in, and the pins were just totally bent. They were bent up. So it probably took me 20 minutes to get all 4 of these memory modules in here. While I was installing the second 2, the first one just fell out. So the rubber bands are to hold it in place. I think the rubber bands will hold it in place adequately, but I'm not sure. I mean, it appears to be making good contact. We'll see. I have no idea about the RAM modules that are already in here. I don't want to extract these RAM modules because this plastic is super brittle. I don't have any angled replacements for these, so if it's 4 megs, it's 4 megs. If it's 6 megs, it's 6 megs. And if it's if these modules work, I may try to install more and go, shoot for the moon, try to get all 8 megs. I'm going to install this in the computer, put the drivers in, and see if I can get anything to work. All right, this is the BOCA RAM AT Plus installation utility. Contains 4. All right, so it's detecting that RAM that other 2 megabytes must be bad. So I will just say yes. It does. Yep. This appears to be 6 megahertz. I don't know. I haven't measured it, but we'll assume that they are correct. Escape 1 selection is complete. Base value satisfactory. Sure. No, they're not, because the XT IDE BIOS is at C8. So I'm going to disable that. And so let's disable all the ones in the C range. No, I sure don't. I sure don't want you to do that either. Press the key. Okay. All right, let's do this. Survey says, all right. This seems to be doing all the right things. Got the 4 megabytes of RAM. Did all the things. Oh, okay. So maybe, so now mem should show that I have 4 megabytes of EMS and 3.5 megabytes of XMS. Yes. Okay. That, I do wonder why it says this. I don't understand. I don't. Total contiguous, available. Like, I don't, what? How is that? Why is that number different? If you know why this is 0 when both of these are not 0, please let me know in the comments, because I sure do not know. The reason for all of this quest was there is some very dedicated individual who has been porting Doom to the 286, and it requires 2 megabytes of EMS. So I want to give this a go. You have to download one of his releases from his GitHub, which I will link in the description below. Copy specific files over, depending on, there's multiple builds depending on, it even runs on an 8088. You have to copy some specific files out of different parts of the release archive on top of an existing Doom installation, which is what I have here. And this is the 0.24 release. So I've got Doom installed. This is actual full retail Doom. Let's see if it... All right, it's a 286 and it's slow, so maybe this will take a while. Well, I generally consider that when the caps lock light stops responding and the num lock light stops responding, I think that means we're in a bad way. All right, let's try it. So I also got 0.23. Let's try that. All right, let's see if 0.23 fares any better. It does not seem to fare any better. There is a memory test that came with the BOCA software. Maybe just some of the RAM is marginal, like it could detect it, but it's bad. Let's try that. Well, just for giggles, I decided to check to see where the network card was putting the boot ROM, and it's actually okay. So it is conflicting with that. I'm going to do a bunch of reconfiguration off camera. Reconfigured the BOCA RAM card so that it won't conflict with the network card, and hopefully... But I'm still going to run the BRP, the burp, the burp test. Yes. I wonder how long this is going to take. Looks like after a few minutes, it came back and said that all that RAM is fine. I don't know how good the memory test is that this software does. The technology of knowing about how to properly test memory to find faults has improved quite a bit since the 1900s. But I feel like this is some indication that the RAM is probably okay. What I should have done is I should have, before putting this memory in here, is I should have put it in a 486 and run an old version of MEM-TEST86 on it. I'm not taking it out now. Okay, so then, trying again. Oh, it gets farther this time. Oh. Okay, so the problem before must have been that
the EMS card was improperly configured. But it still doesn't run, and it gives a, it's almost like it's trying to communicate with me. All right, well, let's try the previous version. All right, maybe something bad happened and I need to try to reboot. After a cleansing reboot, all right, caps lock light is still functional, so it's thinking. We'll give it a few minutes, see if it makes any progress. We gave it about 10 minutes. Caps lock is still working, so it's not, the system isn't tanked, but it has made no progress. So maybe this software doesn't like something about this particular EMS board and its driver? I don't know. I'm not sure what EMS configurations this has specifically been tested with. I suspect most people are using more advanced 286 chipsets that can actually do the right thing. You know, the generation like right after this one. I think I'm gonna try going back to using the sketchy EMS driver for the motherboard chipset and let it try to trampoline through conventional memory and see if that works. I'm not holding out a lot of hope that will work. If that configuration does not work with Windows, I don't have a lot of confidence that it will work with this. But let's give it a go. All right, so it gets, okay, interesting. It does exactly the same thing as the other driver. I guess I can try, oh man. I'm looking off camera at this. I guess I can try the Intel above board and see if that works. I feel like that is going to be an exercise in futility, but let's dot all the I's and cross all the T's. I respect my craft. Knowing that the above board installation software will not work with this version of DOS, because I have been down that road before, I found with one of the boards that I have, I actually have legit documentation for it. So using that, I have configured it based on, so the M option tells it to tells the EMS driver to put the magic window at, I want to say C800. I5 tells it the IO ports to use based on how these dip switches are configured, and D tells it to use an abbreviated memory test on boot up. Let's give it a go and see how it does. All right, let's see. Ah, excellent. Okay. I assume that this error, that my computer is not completely compatible with an IBM AT. I assume that this is actually, this driver is not compatible with this version of DOS. And I'm running, what am I running on here? Yeah, I'm running 5.0. Okay. I can try installing DOS. I believe I have 3.3.1. I will give that a try. Like, it's just a matter of installing it and then bulk copying everything from one SD card to another. That's easy enough to do. All right, DOS 3.3.1 installed. The config.sys set up. We should be good to go. Famous last words, right? Survey says, all right, it worked and then it didn't work. Why is Cute Mouse? I don't know what to make of that. Well, guess I can unplug the mouse? Okay. So just Cute Mouse doesn't work on this version of DOS. Well, let's first try. All right, let's try actually power cycling it. This is weird. What is going on? All right. What? Memory test will take longer because it's almost twice as much memory. What the heck? Please wait while we test memory. I have tried an experiment. Let's see if the rest of this pans out. See if Wolf runs. So what I did is I disabled turbo. I have a suspicion that when this is running at full speed, maybe it's just running the ISA bus faster than these above boards like. Okay, so with turbo off, the ISA bus speed is 6 megahertz. With turbo on, it's, oh wow, it's 12 megahertz. Okay, so it's running at the full CPU. Oh, this really is a terrible chipset. Okay, so with the ISA bus is clocked at the CPU speed on this computer. And apparently these above boards, they sure don't like 12 megahertz. And I can't say that I blame it. That is outside of the reasonable range for an ISA bus. Oh, that's really frustrating. All right, let's try Doom on here on a 6 megahertz 286. We'll see how that goes. That's interesting because that other utility, when configuring the BOCA RAM board, said, oh hi, is your ISA bus 6 megahertz? And that seemed reasonable, so I assumed it was, but I've measured now. It is 12. Okay. I will go back and try reconfiguring that card and see if it works better. Well, that's a different error. I will give the advinst a try. 12 megahertz. It is not correct. I'm going to say it's 12. Yes and yes. That all looks like what I want. Oh, this is new. Okay, so the RAM that's on there is 70 nanosecond. Some minus keys to adjust. Okay. Oh man. Total system data access time 249 nanoseconds. Ooh! All right. I think that is good. Do I wish to enable parity? Sure. No. Need to disable that one, right? Yeah. No RAM disk. Huh. So it doesn't tell me to put the BOCA RAM in my config.sys. That's interesting. Okay, let's see if this helps anything. I'm gonna give Doom one more try. This is right about where it got before. Oh? Caps lock is still working. It's doing something. It might be stuck now. Well, I gave it some more minutes and it did not make any additional progress, so I'm going to assume that that was not actually the problem. Well, I am out of ideas about this. I suppose, I mean, there were a couple other older BIOSes available for this board and kind of similar boards. Maybe one of those will work better. I don't know. It's also definitely possible. I mean, this is version 0.24. It could be a problem with this port of Doom. I'll try to contact the author and see what kinds of systems they've tested with and maybe help out with some of the debugging on it. But I think this is, I've actually been working on this off and on and doing a bunch of this stuff. I kind of went back through and redid a bunch of this tonight and got some different results. I'm a little bit surprised. I got some different results, but I have been tinkering with this off and on for about 2 weeks. I'm kind of done looking at 286s. And I haven't even done anything with this one. So there will eventually be another 286 video. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. I have a couple events coming up in March and April that I'm going to have to do a bunch of stuff to get ready for. And I'm not going to be able to mess about with these anymore. I'm going to play with some other toys. If you have any ideas or any suggestions of things that I might try to get this functioning, I would love to hear about it. I'm completely at a loss. I mean, it meets the minimum requirement of a 286. It will run Wolf 3D. Okay, fine. I want, a fella can dream. I wanted more. If you enjoyed this video, I would sure appreciate a like. Again, I would love any comments you may have or suggestions or, pointing out obviously foolish things that I have done or not done. I am not sure what I'm going to get to next. I have got a pile of things. One of the events that I have coming up in April is a swap meet. So I'm going to go through and try and get a bunch of stuff ready to put up for sale at that swap meet. I don't know what that's going to be. I am eventually going to get back to these 286s because after I've had a break from them, it's going to bother me that they beat me. So I will be compelled to come back to them. I don't know when that's going to be. I still have somewhere in the background, I still have the Apple Network servers sitting back there mocking me. I need to get to those. I'm hoping to exhibit those in a little over a week at the Interim Computer Festival. I'll provide a link in the description.
It's in Seattle. If you know where the old Rainier Brewery is in Seattle, it's there. It's a fun event. I've been to it a few times before. I highly recommend going. It is a very small event. It is VCF super extra light, like the featherweight VCF. It's a fun event. I'm hoping to exhibit those and probably the Mindscape music board there. It's still a little bit up in the air. If you're interested in seeing any of that future nonsense, I highly recommend that you subscribe to the channel. And not that I'm convinced there was any in this whole experience. Until next time, try to remember the good stuff.